All right, let's get into this. I want you to imagine a man living way back at the dawn of history who did something so incredible that God himself just decided, you know what, death isn't for you. In a world that was getting darker by the day, one guy's life became the shining light that we're still talking about. This is the story of Enoch. And that really brings us to the core mystery of his whole story, right? It's a question that has captivated people for thousands of years. I mean, how does a person just vanish? Not by dying, but because they're just taken? And this is where it all comes from, this incredibly short, blunt verse in the book of Genesis. There's no big dramatic scene. It just states it as a fact, with this cosmic finality. 1 minute, he was here. The next, he was not. Why? Because God took him. But to really get what that means, we need to understand the world he was living in. Now, Enoch wasn't born into some peaceful, idyllic garden. Not at all. He was born into a world that was at a major spiritual crossroads, a place of really sharp, growing contrasts that would end up defining his entire journey. The spiritual weather, so to speak, was getting pretty grim. Humanity was starting to forget who made them. The Bible describes it as a time when wickedness was becoming great and violence was filling the earth. This wasn't just a few bad apples, it was the whole culture starting to rot. So at the time, you basically had these two major paths humanity was taking. On one side, you have the line of Seth. These are Enoch's ancestors, and they were known for their faith. But on the other side, you have the line of Cain, the first murderer, and they were all about human achievement and doing it all on their own. And honestly, Cain's descendants were, well, they were impressive. I mean, look at this. They were the innovators, the builders, the artists. We're talking about the world's first cities, mastering metal, creating musical instruments. They were building civilization from the ground up, but they'd left God completely out of the blueprints. And then you have Enoch's family, in total contrast. Their defining feature wasn't what they built, it was who they worshipped. Their legacy wasn't forged in bronze or iron. It was in this simple, incredibly powerful act of faith. They called upon the name of the Lord. And that's the divided world Enoch was born into. This is where we get to the real heart of Enoch's story. The key to understanding his incredible departure from this world isn't really about something he did, but more about the relationship he built. Even from a young age, Enoch just felt that there had to be something more to life than all the temporary stuff he saw around him. It's funny, his name actually means dedicated, which was pretty much a prophecy for his life. He just had this hunger in his soul that worldly achievements couldn't fill. He was pulled toward the eternal. So it's really important we get this next part. When the Bible says Enoch walked with God, what does that actually mean? Well, it wasn't just about believing God existed or saying a prayer now and then. The language here suggests a literal, personal companionship. Seriously, picture two friends just taking a long walk together, sharing everything. That's the kind of relationship Enoch had with the creator of the universe. And you can see how it all unfolded, step by step. It all started with that feeling in his heart, right? That led him to make a choice to actually seek God. That choice then grew into this amazing, intimate daily walk, which eventually prepared him to be God's spokesman for his entire generation. It was a journey, not a one-time thing. And the sheer scale of this is just mind-blowing. After his son Methuselah was born, Enoch walked with God for 300 years. Let that sink in. 3 centuries of daily, non-stop fellowship. The world changed, people came and went, but for 300 years, one thing was constant: Enoch's walk with God. But Enoch's life wasn't just this quiet, private spiritual journey. Oh no. God gave him a job to do. He made him a prophet with a message so urgent, he literally embedded it into the name of his own son. First off, we need to know he had real prophetic authority. And we do, because thousands of years later, the New Testament book of Jude actually quotes him. He was warning people about a coming judgment, a day the Lord would return to judge everyone for their ungodly acts. He was speaking truth to a world that really did not want to hear it. But his most immediate, personal, and frankly terrifying prophecy wasn't a sermon he gave from a mountaintop. It was a living, breathing countdown clock that he started the day his son was born. He named his son Methuselah. So what does that name mean? It's a bombshell. It literally means, when he is dead, it shall be sent. God had told Enoch that the judgment, the great flood, was going to happen the very same year his son died. Can you imagine? Every single time he called his son's name, he was reminding the world that God's patience had a deadline. Now, Methuselah lived for 969 years, the longest life recorded in the entire Bible. So what is that number really about? It's about the longest period of grace in history. For 969 years, God held back the flood, giving humanity every possible chance to turn back. Methuselah's life was this slow-motion clock, ticking down to disaster. So, let's bring it all back home and solve that mystery we started with. We've seen the world Enoch was in, the incredible life he led. Now let's talk about his departure and the powerful legacy that he left for all of us. This timeline really puts it all into perspective. He lived 365 years, which was actually pretty short for back then. But the defining feature, the thing that made his life extraordinary, was that incredible 300-year stretch of just walking with God. So after 3 centuries of being that close to God, it seems like the boundary between earth and heaven just sort of blurred for Enoch. His disappearance wasn't some strange interruption of his life. It was the most natural conclusion to it. He had walked so closely with God that he just walked right on home with him into eternity. And here it is, the ultimate reason why. The book of Hebrews spells it out for us. The key to everything was his faith. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about a life of such complete trust and devotion that it actually pleased God. And because God was so pleased with him, he just bypassed death altogether. So what did he leave behind? What's his legacy? Well, for one, he proved that a deep personal relationship with God is actually possible for people. He was a beacon of hope in one of the darkest times in history. His disappearance was this undeniable proof of both God's coming judgment and his incredible love. And he became a model of faith for every generation that followed. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Enoch's story, just a few short verses from the dawn of time, still resonates today. It really forces us to ask ourselves, what does it mean to live a life so focused on the eternal that it leaves behind an echo that time itself can't silence?